My name is GiBi, this is Toto. I spilled water on my shirt right before we started recording, and I have this guy now. He doesn't have a name. I don't know what his name is. I mean, he's toothless, I know that, but he's a Toy Freddy, we don't call him Toy Freddy. So leave your suggestion below for what his name should be. Welcome to the Horror Homestead. This is a video in an ongoing series I'm making about the Five Nights at Freddy's series of Fazbear Fright novels. In each video, I'm going to summarize, analyze, and theorize about one story in the Five Nights at Freddy's anthology series. I am currently a believer in the Frights fiction fan theory, which states that each story is actually an in-universe novel published by Fazbear Entertainment in order to make money, probably. If you're watching this when it comes out, this is the first video since Secret of the Mimic, and there's some new Frights fiction evidence, but we're not really going to talk about that. There's an implication that Tales from the Pizzaplex might be a dream being had by a computer, but we're not going to talk about that. We're now talking about the 9th physical book in the series, The Puppet Carver, and its first story, The Puppet Carver. This story was written by Ellie Cooper. The cover art is kind of mid. It's not as bad as Gumdrop Angel, but it's whatever. I would not pick this up on the shelf at a Scholastic book fair in elementary school. It just looks boring. Anyway, let's begin the summary. There's a middle-aged guy named Jack, and he owns the Pizza Playground, which is not a Freddy's location, but it does have animatronics that keep breaking down. The one that causes all the fuss in the beginning of the story is a pig animatronic, so maybe it's Pig Patch. Later, we will hear about a bear and a bunny and a fox being part of the animatronics that they have. So maybe they purchased these from Fazbear Entertainment or something like that, and so they contain the evil energy of Fazbear, but we're not sure. The story is about Jack being an awful boss. The business is losing money, he's terrible to his employees, he calls them names, they're always worried about what mood he's gonna be in when they get to work. Most of the employees are in school, and so they're just kind of waiting for bigger and better things to come along in their life. You have Porter. Porter is an engineer and likes inventing things. You have Sage, who's a writer and is writing a novel. They're both in college, and they're best friends, and they're roommates. You also have Angie, who is in nursing school. And then you have Edwin, who is a cook, and is older than the others. I think it's a coincidence. He's working here because it's a good job for him, and so if this business goes under, then he's cooked. Ellie Cooper is really good at weaving exposition into the narrative, so we watch scenes where the plot moves forward, but also we gain important exposition and information that we'll need for the story to make sense. A lot of other stories are written like, here's the important thing that's going on. Then we're going to pause the story, and then we're going to spotlight important information that you, the reader, need to know. Whereas when Ellie Cooper writes, it seems like she's actually telling a story that she wants to be telling. Andrea Wagner writes amazing stories, and then she has to, shove Scott Cawthon's ideas into them, which is why she writes the best and the worst stories in the series. Whereas Ellie Cooper takes Scott's ideas and elevates them. Ellie's stories read more like actual books. So an animatronic breaks down on stage. Jack is mad. He orders Porter and Sage to bring it to the back storage room. Backstage, Porter shows Sage an invention that he's working on, a puppet carver. That's the name of the story. The idea is that you can toss a plank of wood into it like a wood chipper, and then it spits out a wooden animatronic. That way, they don't need to keep fixing broken ones. They can, for the price of a piece of wood, make new animatronics. He shows Sage how it works. It's very cool and awesome, and it works. But he warns Sage that after each use, the wood chips and sawdust need to be cleaned out of the base. Then Jack comes back and yells at them and tells them to go back to work. The staff all go to a local diner after work, and they complain about Jack, their boss. This is the conversation where we learn all of their backstories and their ambitions. We learn that Sage is writing a book called The Puppet Carver, which is where Porter got the idea for his invention. The book is about a wooden puppet that comes to life and wishes to be real. Excerpts from this book are placed throughout the text, and we will analyze them later. Jack goes to a drive-thru after work and yells about them forgetting to put the bacon on his burger. Then his son calls him to tell him that he wrecked his car, and so he used his credit card to get it fixed. Jack yells at him, too. Then he goes home to his wife, who wants to spend money they don't have renovating their house, and Jack finds her annoying. Jack has high blood pressure problems, and all of this yelling and stress and poor diet are going to put him in an early grave. Jack, angrier than ever, goes to work the next day, and Porter convinces him to try the puppet carver machine to see if maybe he can save the business. The whole staff gathers to watch this machine that's supposed to fix everything and make it all work. Porter turns it on, and it doesn't work. Instead, it sprays sawdust and wood chips everywhere. Jack screams about them wasting his time, orders them to clean it up, and then once the restaurant is cleaned, he fires all 4 of his employees. That night, he's sitting in his office, fuming, when he hears a strange ticking sound come from somewhere else in the restaurant. He relates this to the Telltale Heart. The Telltale Heart is an Edgar Allan Poe story where a guy kills another guy, hides him in the floorboards, but he can still hear the beat of his heart through the floorboards, and that drives him crazy. It's also parodied in the Squeaky Boots episode of SpongeBob. I don't need to do that analysis because Jack made the comparison himself. Thank you, Jack. Jack tracks the noise to the puppet carver machine. He looks inside of it. This is not a rational thing to do, but the ticking is driving him mad. He goes inside the machine and turns it on. I'll read you the passage. What was it that idiot had called this machine? The puppet carver. Jack's heart pounded in terror. He was going to be carved. There was no way to escape. All around him, the sharp metal blades reached toward his body, less than an inch from making contact with his arms, his legs, his face. This was it. He was going to die, and painfully. How long would it take, he wondered, for someone to find his body? No one would think to look for him here, not until there was a smell. Jack shut his eyes and prepared for the worst. Bang! He gasped, startled by the deafening noise. The loud bang was followed by a cloud of black smoke that filled the small space where Jack was trapped. There was a smell of ozone. He coughed and wondered if he would asphyxiate before the blades in the machine had time to shred him. Wait, the blades! The blades had stopped spinning. The machine was quiet. It must have malfunctioned in some way. The door slid open, releasing the smoke from the compartment. The machine made a sad sputtering noise, and then was still. Jack was alive. He couldn't believe it. He stepped out of the compartment like he was stepping into a new, better world. He looked himself over. No harm done, not to him anyway. The puppet carver might be broken beyond repair, but it hadn't really worked in the first place. Jack felt himself smiling. When was the last time he had smiled genuinely? He couldn't even remember. But now, back from the cliff's edge of death, there seemed to be so many reasons to smile. The problems that had consumed him before didn't seem as important. Money didn't matter that much. All that mattered was that he was alive. Okay, so we don't know why the machine turned on. It should not have been possible. There was no one there to, press the switch while he was inside of it. But we also don't know why it didn't work. And Jack's response seems pretty realistic, having just almost died. Jack's near-death experience gives him a change of attitude. He goes and he apologizes to the young woman who works at the fast food restaurant that he yelled at. He plans to apologize and make things right with his son and his wife. It's like the ending of A Christmas Carol. He's seen his death, and now he's a better person. Jack felt his heart brimming with love and kindness. He was like Ebenezer Scrooge in A Christmas Carol after his encounter with the ghosts. No longer a mean old miser, but a man who could find the goodness in life and people, and even within himself. Okay, Ellie, you just do my job for me, apparently. Then something strange happens, and I don't know what or why or how, but we get the one bad thing, the one problem I find in this story. And that would be the extended chase scene where a figure chases Jack through a parking garage, into an office, and then corners him in a room. The thing chasing him can slide underneath doors, and when Jack sees it, well, there was no street parking near the donut shop, so Jack had to use the parking garage a block away. He wasn't thrilled by this fact. Really, the Dunky Dolman wasn't in the safest neighborhood to be wandering at night, but then he was sure he heard another pair of footsteps behind him. He casually glanced over his shoulder. There was no need to be afraid. It was probably just some regular person on a regular errand like he was. But Jack saw no one. He heard the steps again. They sounded wet, squishy, like somebody walking in galoshes in the rain. Jack started walking more quickly, and the steps sped up to match his. He caught sight of an office building on the left, tried the door and found it open. Once inside, he noticed that the door had a chain, which he quickly fastened. There was also a lock on the doorknob, which he turned. He glanced back at the front door just to confirm that he'd locked it, and saw there was movement in the tiny crack between the bottom of the door and the floor. Something was oozing through the crack. It was some sort of gelatinous substance, and its movement was slow and steady. It was pink, but it was a horrible pink. Not the pink of cake frosting and party balloons. It was the pink of some living creature's insides. Jack took a step backward. He knew he needed to move more quickly, but he was transfixed by the sight of whatever was in front of him. Although it had the appearance of some sort of goo, it seemed to be moving under its own power. It wasn't an inanimate substance. It was alive. The thing had approximations of arms and legs and a lumpy mound that stood in for a head. It was made of the translucent pink goo, under which its organs were visible. Somehow it reminded Jack of the awful gelatin salad his mom used to make, with canned fruit suspended under the slimy surface. It had no mouth or nose, but it had eyes. Dark eyes that stared at Jack, as though the thing could see into him the way he was seeing into it. What do you want?" Jack asked, his voice trembling. He didn't want to die, not when he had just had one near miss, not when he had just remembered what was important. The creature kept looking at him. Then, slowly, it raised one arm and reached toward him. Like elastic, its arm stretched, growing thinner as it reached across the length of the desk to touch Jack's face. Pain like Jack had never known shot through him, but it wasn't physical pain. He felt the pain of hurt, neglect, abuse. It was the pain of every employee he had ever yelled at or fired, the pain of his son every time he had missed one of his ball games or unfairly criticized him, the pain of his wife for every forgotten birthday or unkind word. Jack was filled with all the emotional pain he'd ever caused, and it was more intense than he could bear. He doubled over and squeezed his tear-filled eyes shut, sure he was about to die from a real broken heart. But then the pain left him as suddenly as it had come, and he was awash in an overwhelming sense of relief. When he opened his eyes, the creature was gone. Okay, so... Faz-Goo? No. I don't know what to think. The book uses the word goo, and it's kind of described like Faz-Goo, but nothing else about it is like Faz-Goo. It has eyes, but they're not Jack's eyes. It didn't take his organs. He didn't feel himself getting drained and absorbed. The new him that survives the attack is not a Faz-Goo clone with no memories. The community, and I especially think Dako specifically, labeled this as Faz-Goo immediately, but I don't think it is. These are not the rules we learned about Faz-Goo. The only thing this has in common with Faz-Goo is that it is pink, and it is gelatinous, but I think there's a better explanation for that. It was the pink of some living creature's insides. Its guts, which when you blend them up would become a gelatinous pink goo. It was a pile of parts he couldn't make sense of. Much of it was somewhere between solid and liquid, but there were fully solid parts as well. Bundles of long, snake-like tubes, veiny bags and pouches. When Jack was a little boy, he'd spent winter break at his grandparents' farm. He remembered watching his grandpa and uncle butcher a hog once. They had hung its body from a tree. His uncle had sliced down the hog's middle, and its guts had spilled out into a bucket with a sickening splat. This thing, that was how it sounded and moved. That's not Faz-Goo, that's human guts coming after him. I think a lot of people jumped the gun on this. If you check the awful FNAF wiki, it says that some people theorize that this is the kid from He Told Me Everything hunting down Jack, which of course adds nothing to the story that we're actually being told. What does this do for the story of Jack to have him replaced with Faz-Goo? Nothing. He already had his change of heart. Having a new him or him being a clone or something does not have anything to do with the moral of the story. I 100% do not think this is Faz-Goo. I will explain a little more at the end of the story, but yeah, Faz-Goo, you don't become a gelatinous blob that can squeeze itself under doors. Faz-Goo clones can't Mr. Fantastic their arm across a room. After surviving whatever this is, Jack goes home to tell his wife that the business is actually failing, so they need to cut back on their spending, and he says that they can't do renovations to the house. His wife is actually kind of excited about this because it means that she has to go back to work. She's kind of been bored living this wife of a rich guy, but he's not actually rich. He then calls his son to apologize. He calls his old employees and tells them to come back to work and that they will be unfired. He offers a special $10 pizza deal to entice customers to come in, and they start doing better business. Everything is looking up. The story ends with Sage being asked to clean up in the back after a great day of work. Here are the last few paragraphs of the story. Porter had told Sage he was going to have to go back to the drawing board and develop what would hopefully be a more effective Puppet Carver 2.0. The old machine would have to be scrapped, but Porter said he didn't have the heart to do it himself. Sage had promised he would take care of it. Sage wrestled with the machine, trying to figure out the best way to get it outside to the dumpster. As he tugged on it, he became aware of a slight sloshing sound. And then there was the smell. A rotting, fetid smell that made him gag. It seemed to be coming from the bottom of the machine. Maybe a rat had crawled in there and died or something. Sage kneeled in front of the puppet carver so he could reach the drawer at the bottom that served as a reservoir for all the waste generated during the carving process. "Here we go," he muttered as he prepared for the source of the smell. When he pulled out the drawer, the smell was so strong that his nose was assaulted. The sight was even worse than the smell. Slimy pink entrails and mangled organs. Was that a kidney or a piece of liver? Not the organs of a rat, but of a much larger creature. Human size. Sage had no idea what could have happened here, but it was all the more reason to get the whole thing to the dumpster as fast as possible. Holding his breath, he dumped the contents of the drawer in a garbage bag. They landed with a wet splat. He threw the bag in the dumpster and walked away, ready to put his days at the pizza playground behind him. Analysis. Okay, so what was the non-Faz-Goo? It was Jack's guts. Obviously, the ones that Sage throws away at the end of the story. Jack doesn't die. The puppet carver destroys his rough exterior, leaving him the vulnerable new man that he is afterwards. It's symbolic, but it's also literal because it's like a horror story with like magic stuff. It does remove something, his body, and now he's a new person, but it's symbolic of him actually becoming a new person. The guts in the bottom of the machine are his old self, which is then unceremoniously thrown into a dumpster at the end of the story. Good riddance, old Jack. The goo that chases him is not real. The goo is a projection. It's the telltale heart. He's being chased by the darkness of his past. His past self is coming after him. His past actions are haunting him, which is why they reach him, and he becomes overwhelmed with the anger and pain that he caused in everyone else for his entire life. He now feels what they felt. This thing chasing him is his old self treating him the way that he treated other people. I cannot emphasize enough that this is not how Faz-Goo works, and it would make no sense to have the machine change him and then have Faz-Goo clone him afterwards. The near-death experience is what changed his personality, not being cloned. Why would we need both? The story is about him confronting his past and being changed by it. He sees that his old self was a monster. This is not Five Nights at Freddy's lore, this is symbolism in a book that is taking tropes from the Telltale Heart and A Christmas Carol. The thing that Jack killed, his past self, is haunting him to teach him a lesson about what the future could hold. The book tells us what it's about, and it's not about Faz-Goo. He finds the good within himself, like Scrooge, and thus has to face the evil that used to be within him. What is the guts at the end of the story? How did he survive the process? It doesn't matter, this is a fantasy horror world. It's a horror story, and to shoehorn Faz-Goo into this is so lame. Like, I genuinely cannot believe that this is a thing that people think the story is saying. This story was a fast and enjoyable read. It's a weird concept, and I kept wondering where it was going to go. I also thankfully didn't have to stop in the middle to talk about A Christmas Carol because the book did that for me. So there's not really any more analysis to be done on the story itself. But what we do need to analyze is the puppet carver, the story within the story. Let's read some passages. This is the first chapter of The Puppet Carver. It follows right after a normal day at work, and then Sage and Porter go home, and we get to read the beginning of the Puppet Carver book. Sylvester Pine emerged from the chamber as a perfect specimen. The first thing he saw were his hands, which were fully jointed. He watched himself curl them into fists, then straighten them back out and spread the fingers apart. "Remarkable, yes?" his creator said. Sylvester nodded. "Would you like to see more of yourself?" his creator asked. Sylvester nodded again. His creator smiled. "You are programmed with the power of language, both the ability to comprehend and the ability to speak. When I ask you a question, please answer it with a yes or a no. Now, would you like to see more of yourself?" "Yes," Sylvester said. The word slipped from his lips effortlessly. "Good," his creator said. "Follow me." I have two things to talk about so far. First, in a prior segment, Porter told Sage that his book was really good and used vivid language. I disagree. Don't make me go on my adverb rant. The word slipped from his lips effortlessly. Come on, that's not vivid language. Secondly, the creator of an animatronic that has come to life uses the phrase, "follow me." We obviously have to think about William Afton in that case. We should obviously first think Geppetto or God, but the use of the phrase "follow me" is something that can't be ignored. The thing is that nothing else we say about this creator character ties to William Afton. Let's keep reading. Sylvester let his creator lead him to a large piece of glass he somehow knew was called a mirror. Sylvester regarded himself. He was a complete person, with symmetrical facial features and eyes that opened and closed. When he wished to move an arm or a leg, it moved according to his unspoken commands. He was not yet clothed, but when he was, he knew that he would strongly resemble a man with one exception. The surface of his face and body, unlike his creator's, was not soft and pliable, because instead of flesh, it was made of smooth, solid wood. Okay, so not being clothed is very clearly a biblical reference to Adam and Eve. Right, they're told to not eat from the tree of knowledge. They do. They recognize that they're naked, so they hide their shame from God the next time he appears, which is how God knows that they ate from the tree, because they've gained the knowledge of their nakedness. So Sylvester being naked right after being created and not clothed is a biblical allusion. The passage continues. "You're a handsome fellow," his creator said, "and a highly functional one. You can think, you can move, you can talk. You have 3 of the 5 senses regular humans have. Sight, hearing, and smell. What senses am I missing?" His creator shrugged. "Nothing very important. You don't have a sense of taste because you have no need to eat. And you don't have a sense of touch because we haven't been able to perfect that technology yet. But this isn't a wholly bad thing. You have no ability to feel heat or cold, no ability to feel pain. In some ways, this lack makes you superior to those who have it." Sylvester touched his left hand with his right hand. Then he reached out and touched his creator on the shoulder. His creator was right. Sylvester felt nothing. Haha, get it? Felt nothing? Because he doesn't have a physical sense of touch, but also, he can't feel emotional things. He touches his creator and feels nothing. Let's think back to the creation of Adam painting, where God and Adam are barely not touching. Sylvester gets to touch his creator but doesn't feel anything because he's incapable of doing so. Within the story itself, Sylvester might be a stand-in for Jack, the main character. He's a creature that cannot feel, the way that Jack lacks empathy. Let's go to the next passage. This is right after Jack yells at the fast food worker, and his son calls him to say that he needs money to fix his car, and Jack yells at his son. Let's read that passage first. "Are you talking back to me?" Jack roared. "No, Dad, I'm trying to understand." "Well, I'm trying to understand too," Jack interrupted him. "I'm trying to understand how just 2 people, the other one being your mother, though you don't need a college education to figure that one out, how just 2 people can be such an enormous drain on my finances." Jack hung up the phone before he could hear whatever sob story Tyson was about to tell him. Bleeding him dry. His business, his family were bleeding him dry. Why couldn't they understand that he wasn't an endless source of money? They treated him like a human ATM. With a shaking hand, Jack opened the search engine screen on his phone and typed in the word bankruptcy. So this is about Jack being mad at his family. We then immediately jump into this passage from the puppet carver. "What are they?" Sylvester asked the little girl. In the cardboard box was a pile of small, squirming, furry creatures. The little girl giggled. "They're kittens. Have you never seen kittens before?" Sylvester shook his head. "Really?" the little girl said. She picked up one of the creatures. It was orange and white and made a strange mewling sound. "They're baby cats. I named this one Daffodil. Do you want to pet her?" Sylvester reached down and gently stroked the tiny creature. "Isn't she soft?" the little girl said. "Yes, very soft," Sylvester answered. The truth was, the kitten could have been as hard as a rock for all he knew. He could feel nothing. Sylvester, like all of his wooden brethren, had been created perfectly to perform the manufacturing jobs that were required of them. But because he and his brethren could not truly feel anything, they were not real. Sylvester couldn't feel the softness of a kitten, or the bright sun on his face. He couldn't feel the heat from a fireplace or a cool evening breeze. He couldn't feel the hugs of friendship, or the kisses of love. So once again, the book is putting these 2 passages next to each other to invite us to ask why. And our first thought should be that they're paralleling each other. And if they're paralleling each other, why? What are they telling us about the other passage? Jack can feel so little that he yells at his son and blames his child and wife for his hardships. Sylvester can feel so little that he can't even feel the softness of a kitten. These are the same kinds of being unable to feel. If you can't feel, it's very easy to turn into narcissism or egotism or to blame everyone else and to take advantage of people. That's the wrath of unfeeling. But Sylvester does not react this way. He reacts with the depression of unfeeling. He wishes he could feel. Feeling comes with sadness and a whole lot of issues, as his creator said, but Sylvester still wants it. This is how the passage ends. Sylvester could walk and talk like a man, but he wasn't fooling anybody, least of all himself. A wooden man was no man at all. More than anything, Sylvester longed to be real. I really wish that real was capitalized here like it is in the Velveteen Rabbit, but I don't really think it changes the meaning. I think it's still an homage, a reference, an allusion to the Velveteen Rabbit. If you remember back to when we talked about that story in our In the Flesh segment, it's a story about a toy rabbit that wants to be real. You become real when a child loves you. and over time you gain feelings, and then at the end of the story, a fairy makes the Velveteen Rabbit into an actual rabbit, which implies that real means having feelings and being loved, but also that it means fulfilling that wish in a physical way. Feelings and love make you real, so if Sylvester wants to be real, he needs feelings and to be loved. Let's see if that happens for him. The next segment is after Jack fires all of his employees, but before he enters into the puppet carving machine. This is his lowest point. We now get this segment from the puppet carver. Sylvester knew he could feel now because he had felt pain beyond imagining. After he had paid the Fixer in money and promises he didn't look forward to keeping, the Fixer had connected Sylvester to the machinery, and pain had shot through his body with the force of electricity as every new nerve, muscle, bone, and tendon in his body were shocked to life. The pain was so strong, he seemed to be able to see it, even hear it, as its intensity drowned out the sounds of his own screams. Okay, so Sylvester is hooked up to a machine by the Fixer, and now has feelings and emotions and a literal nervous system. This then happens in the next section when Jack enters into the machine, and he comes out a new man. So once again, Sylvester and Jack are paralleling each other. It's painful for Sylvester to get feelings, but he seemingly knows what's going on. But since Sylvester had paid the price in pain, now he could feel pleasure too. As he walked the city streets, he could feel fresh air in his new lungs. He crossed the street, went into the park, and touched the bark of a tree. Hard. Rough. He stopped at an ice cream truck and bought a cone just so he could touch his lips to its coldness. A lady walked by with a fluffy white dog on a leash. "Excuse me, could I please pet your dog?" Sylvester asked her. The lady smiled. "Sure, Sophie loves everybody." Sylvester knelt down and buried his new sensate hands in the dog's fluffy coat. Tears sprang to his eyes. Now he knew what soft meant. "Thank you," Sylvester said to the dog's owner. The woman looked at him strangely. She said, "You're welcome," but quickly walked away. Sylvester looked down at his hands. They felt alive. For the first time since his creation, he felt alive. His hands itched and burned in desperation. All he could think was about what he wanted to touch next. The last passage had said that being wooden was not being real, so we might be able to infer that he's not made of wood anymore. He's actually human, or he looks human now, which makes sense because when he touches the tree, he doesn't think like, oh, this is what I feel like. It's just wood. He's also gained the pleasures and pain that both come with feeling. Let's talk about real life for a second. This is me bringing my own personal experiences into the text, but since everyone is biased when they analyze text, I think it's not a bad thing to do. I just want you guys to know that I'm aware that this is my own bias. In my experience, I can relate to this concept because, in my experience, the pain and relief that comes with forgiveness is a good stand-in for whatever Sylvester is experiencing. Letting go of grudges and forgiving people is very difficult on an emotional and mental level. But when you really, truly forgive someone, it's like weight is lifted from a part of you that you didn't even know was there. And when you apologize and you admit mistakes, and you aren't just doing it because you want to be forgiven, but you're doing it because you want to, it's incredibly painful. I can't believe I'm doing this 2 books in a row. But in Harry Potter, if you kill someone, your soul is actually magically split in half, and you can take half of your soul and put it into an object. That's what a Horcrux is. And in the book, they ask if you can unmake a Horcrux, and Hermione says, remorse. You've got to really feel what you've done. Apparently, the pain of it can destroy you. And I've always felt that this quote is very relevant to real life. Forgiving yourself and forgiving other people is painful and might change who you are, symbolically killing you. The rule I live by is that if someone wrongs you, then you should forgive them. And if you wrong someone, then you should expect them to forgive you. And if they don't forgive you, then you should forgive them for not forgiving you. We don't see Jack going through any pain in the story, because him being chopped up by the blades is skipped over, but we do see Sylvester going through pain. The pain was so strong, he seemed to be able to see it, even hear it, as its intensity drowned out the sounds of his own screams. This reads to me like a metaphor or an allegory for the kind of pain you feel when you develop a sense of empathy and you confront your own poor past actions. We're seeing Sylvester go through this, but we can assume that Jack goes through this too, which would be necessary for his character because, again, he starts the story with no empathy, and then by the end he has it and he's actually thinking of other people first. We don't see him go through that moment of change, but we do see Sylvester go through it. So Jack being ripped up by the blades is an allegory for the internal pain that you feel when you develop empathy. But since we don't see this happen, we instead see Sylvester go through that pain. You got it? The final section of The Puppet Carver comes to us at the end of the story. This is what's happening to Jack right before that passage. "You've been really nice all day today," Sage said. He looked at Jack with a strange intensity. "It's like you're a new man." Jack smiled, happy to be at a table full of happy people sharing good food. It felt like a holiday, a celebration. It was the way things should be. He wasn't sure why things felt so different, so much better, but they did. Jack really was a new man. And now we get to Sylvester's ending. Sylvester held his newborn daughter in his arms. With one hand, he touched her impossibly soft cheek. His eyes filled with tears at the same time, his lips spread into a smile. This, he thought, this was what it meant to be human. The end. Putting these segments next to each other is, again, making us compare them. Jack is a new person because he's nice. Sylvester is now a new person, a human, because he's feeling love for his daughter. Remember, being real means having feelings and also being loved. So now he's a full human. This follows right after Jack is being appreciated by his employees. So now that they like him, he is fully human, because what he lacked before was empathy, feeling, and being loved. So Sylvester is like the Velveteen Rabbit, where he wasn't real, but then a child, his daughter, loves him, so he is real. Jack is also like the Velveteen Rabbit, where he wasn't like a full person, because he didn't love or feel any emotion, but now that he does, he is real. We do need to ask if Sylvester's creator is God or Geppetto or William Afton. I think we can rule out literally God, especially since his creator says that feeling is not a good thing. The thing that gives Sylvester feeling felt like being shocked, which is something that William does to his animatronics. The book is called The Puppet Carver, so his creator is the Puppet Carver, but he's not called the Carver, he's called the Creator. So did Sylvester actually carve himself because he made himself into a new man? Who is Jack's Puppet Carver? Is it the machine, or did it make him a new man, or did he do that himself? So while there's a lot of surface-level references to William Afton within the creation of Sylvester, I don't really see any thematic parallels. Sylvester is not Mike or Baby, Sylvester is Jack. And Jack does not know William Afton. This story also is not in Stitchline, so it doesn't interact with the rest of the series, unless you think that the guts are Faz-Goo, which they aren't, but then Faz-Goo also does not interact with the Stitchline. So you'd have to overlook the connection between Sylvester and Jack to see Sylvester as, like, a parallel to William Afton, because Jack is not a parallel to William Afton. Jack is Jack in this story. This is basically a standalone story. But what do you think? What do you think happened in this book? Why do you think the cover shows a bunch of puppet people when literally there's one in the story and it's only Sylvester? Who are these other two people? I don't know. But what I do know is that I liked this story. And what I do know is that next, we're looking at Jump for Tickets. Thank you for watching. Be sure to be nice to each other in the comments, consider supporting the creators you admire, never lose sight of the things that are important to you, and remember that FREDDY stands for Friendly, Respectful Engagement, Discussion, and Discourse Yield Success. Give me suggestions for what I should name Toothless. Also, should he be on my other shoulder to, like, balance out Toto? I don't know. If he's on my other shoulder, then, like, Clifford can be the angel on this shoulder, and he can be the devil on that shoulder, right? Like, that sounds like it makes sense. I would like to thank my patrons: Brandon, Lauren V, Morgan, Nan, Scott, Sophie, Suka, and Wooly, as well as Billy, Chamikan, Klaus, Eliza, Halmar, Johnny the Night Guard, Kira, Lauren R, Rhiannon, Rose, Sebhar, Thamagata, World's Greatest Bard, Ya Boy Peachy, and Zany Face, as well as Emily, Gremlin, HHD, Jinx, Jose, Kenneth, Mustard Shirt Guy, Rolo, and Riley, as well as Ellie, Jojo, Jeannie, Mariuna, and Ray. I would also like to thank my YouTube members, my Night Guards, those who made it to Night 1, Toolshed Inc., Liz, Violet Puppy, Haley, Sophie, Poppy, Theory Chum, Riley, JT Kelly 18, Golden Productions, Louie, and Jackie. Those who made it to Night 2, Mrs. Trap and Ya Boy Peachy. Those who made it to Night 3, Just Because and The Moving Marker. And those who made it to Night 4, Blood Lovin' Girl, Mr. Simps, Casual Soup, Ace Cole 99, Mad Dog, Cammy Bammy, Eric, Maury, Rainbow Data, Ming Amazing, Cryonide, Isaac, Rose, Slat Fried, Tim, Mamakato, Celtic 1020, EB Theory Blue, Unwithered Sigma, Braden, PS1 Hagrid, Q, Devil Lad 666, Hello Kevin, A Bored Person, Omni Soap, Bowie, Hannah K, Jazz, Dari Light, DP Musique, Zora Tunic Toon, Lucas, Zeta, Nuka Nuka, Tom, Vanessa, Jungle Boy, Bonafide, Rattler, JJ Abrams, Lisa, Daniel, Hopine, Pastel Ghost, Leanne, Broken Spoon, B-Dub CEO, and Ice Mint. We'll see you next time!